Today, we want to talk a little bit about this idea of being our full selves, right, Antonia? So I am noticing more and more in the world that a lot of people that are very smart people, very creative people, maybe they even were an outgoing person at one time. They had a lot of energy to give to the world. They're throttling a little bit. They're kind of resisting giving their full self. I don't know exactly what's causing it. Maybe it's society, maybe it's some social conditioning. I think it's a lot of social conditioning personally. I think it's a lot of people that are, they're looking at the cues of society and going, I don't know, I'm uncertain. And so I don't know if I put myself out, I give the gifts that my personality and my essence brings to the world. If I put that out there, is it going to be rejected? Is it going to be punished? Is it going to be stomped on? Is it going to be received well? And maybe you tested it and you got a little bad feedback and you pull back. So I think that may be one of the things going on, but I thought what we could do today is workshop some of that with everybody here, tune into your lives and find out where maybe you feel a little throttled or stifled or pulling back from. And we can talk about it together, but let's open this up and talk about it from this perspective, Antonia.
Yeah, I think we get socialized out of our personality types from a lot of different quarters. I don't think it's just society. I think it actually usually starts at home. There's a concept called the Pygmalion Project where we have a tendency when we're in partnerships to fall in love with somebody and all the things that are different from us. And then when we get in the relationship or a relationship with them, we immediately start trying to make them more like us, right? We start trying to carve them into this perfect version of what we think that they should be to match our expectations of them. And they call it the Pygmalion Project, right? Trying to craft or sculpt this perfect person. But I think we end up doing Pygmalion projects on our kids. I think we end up doing it on people in our lives that are close to us and that we have influences on. And it happens to us. We end up sort of doing it to other people because a lot of times it was done to us. And so I believe that one of the reasons why we end up stifling or throttling our personality types is because somebody at home was not super happy about how our type preferences showed up. And it could be that maybe we were too high energy for them and they needed a calmer energy. So not intending, to snuff our light out, they just repeatedly said, calm your energy down, as opposed to training us in ways to sort of a keto our energy maybe into other things. The energy is still there, but now it's manifesting in a different way. But instead of doing that, we just go calm your energy down. Or the opposite. Maybe we are naturally more introverted or have a calmer energy. And it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you want to go socialize more? Why don't you want to go make friends? What's happening? And so then we just get this message that whatever it is we're doing is not the right thing. We're supposed to be doing something different. And there's something I've heard from multiple different quarters now. We're talking about it today in our Personality Life Path program, where if there is a contest between being true to ourselves and in integrity with ourselves and making our caretakers happy, we lose every time, right? We will betray our identity and ourselves in favor of our caretakers every time because our caretakers represent life to us, right? If we, for some reason, if they're not happy with us or they reject us when we're little, that means literal death. And so we end up self-betraying, and then we get habituated into self-betrayal. And a part of that, I think, isn't entirely wrong because we start out as feral little creatures and we have to be socialized. And so there's something to be said for not being able to just do whatever our impulses tell us. Like there is something to be said for being more introverted and having people help us come out of our shell, or maybe being high energy and learning how to throttle it a little bit and, figure out different ways of managing that energy. But it's when we get the message that it's not simply that we need to learn better ways of interfacing. It's when we get the message that whatever we are naturally, however we're natively wired, it's just unacceptable. It's just wrong somehow, and you need to change it, which of course is something we can't do, right? We're pre-wired to be focused on certain things. We're pre-wired to have an expression of ourselves. So if we get the message that that's just wrong, then we end up stifling, repressing, turning it into something that's a mutated version of its original form. And a lot of times the crazy thing is we can go a long time doing that. Like maybe an impressively long amount of time. But there's that phrase that life finds a way. So particularly when it comes to our most native cognitive functions in type theory, right? The things that are the most natural to us, maybe our first or dominant or what we call the driver function in the car model, maybe our auxiliary or co-pilot function, or any of the first four functions. If we can't express them, they will find a way to express, but they end up being like weeds coming through a concrete jungle, right? They find all the cracks. The challenge is that they're never what they could have been. They're just trying to find a way to get out. So we see evidence in those moments that weed, that's me, that's my true self, but it doesn't look like it could have looked. It's not in a garden that beautifies it. It's not in a context that makes it the best gift that it could be. It's just this sort of, it's this breath of expression. And I think one of the reasons why we become so attracted to type, a lot of us, is it's the first time that people describe our native wiring in a way that we resonate. And it gives us permission to be wired in that way. It's the first time we go, oh, I'm not broken. Oh, I'm not wrong. You mean that there are other people like me? You mean this is a valid thing? And so we get this hope, right? This hope that it's okay to be the way that we're pre-wired to be. And then we can go off on a mission to find ourselves more and more, to create what we call an ergonomic life for those type preferences, to change our context, to make it so that we accept ourselves more, to make it so that our life is more accommodating to our type preferences. But it depends on just how suppressed they were. It depends on how long we've been spending trying to sort of contort ourselves to expectations. If we've gone a really long time, sometimes it just takes a while to even figure out what that native language is, to find our way. And if we've already established a life based on the preferences of others, based on how we were told we're supposed to be, it can take a long time to unravel that life and put it back together. It takes a long time. Yeah. So it's not necessarily a make wrong. Like, I don't think our parents are necessarily, or the society is necessarily trying to break us. I don't think it's trying to do anything to us. And we're not bad and wrong for letting it change us to some extent, because everybody's sort of doing the best they can. But when we get to that point, when we realize what our type preferences are, part of the psychology of tamping ourselves down is finding permission to do the opposite. So even if you find your type preferences, even if you discover what your native wiring is, now you have to give yourself permission. All that other stuff I said, which is find yourself and create an ergonomic lifestyle for yourself, that comes after giving yourself permission to be that thing at all. That comes after making peace with it. Not just getting excited by the description, but going, no, this is game-changing material. This is something I can actually do something about. Joel, before the podcast, mentioned making personality type come alive. And that's really what it means to make it come alive, is to let it have an impact. Allow it to be the new thing that doesn't like shape you and craft you like it's molding you, but allows you to grow and emerge into it. Like an outfit that was tailored for you, but you've never worn before, right? And to find all of these opportunities and give yourself permission to have something that's tailored for you. Sometimes when we do that, it feels weird. If we're used to wearing clothes that are slightly ill-fitting, when we wear something that's tailored to us, it feels really good, but it's almost like it's too good to be true, right? And sometimes creating a lifestyle that matches our type preferences can feel the same way. It's almost too good to be true, and it's wrong somehow. So I think the concept of suppression and throttling and sort of the dynamics around all of that, I think it's a pretty relevant conversation for a lot of people into type theory, because I think that piece of learning type, but then getting to the ergonomic lifestyle, there's all these steps in between. And that's, I think, actually the dialogue. That's the conversation, is all the steps between awareness and finally being able to express in a way that feels fully authentically you.
So our daughter, Piper, at the time of this recording, right now, is 11 years old. And I'm seeing her on the cusp of just exiting this very free-spirited, she's probably EFP preferences as far as type goes.
At this point, I suspect ESFP.
Probably ESFP. And she's very dynamic. She's very free. Like, nothing bothers her. People could be critical toward her. People could, like, she just rolls with it. I love it. Now, she's on the cusp of, her transition years from childhood to teenager years. And we all know how those go because we've all been through them, right? So I know what's coming for her. But right now, watching her in such a beautiful, just expressing what makes sense to her, such a freedom to express. And we try not to stifle it, right? We try to give her the nurture and the guidance and the opportunities to express the way she wants to express. Now, our job as parents is to prepare her for the real world. So we do socialize her. We give her, okay, you can't just do that at the dinner table, that kind of thing, right? We have to kind of curate her growing up experience, guide her to be able to be a proper adult and be able to interface with other people. But I love the fact that she's been able to express so freely. And she's so inspiring to me to watch just how much she sees something and she's like, I just want to go out and roll in the grass, or I want to climb that tree, or I want to play with my cat. And it just is so inspiring to see how free and how unfettered she is. I'm like, I want more of that in my life. Why do I feel so stuck and trapped and dense? Wouldn't it be wonderful? And all of us probably as children have had at least moments where we tuned into that part of ourselves. It was where we could play. We didn't have to have a purpose. We didn't have to always be on all the time. We didn't have to be, all this pressure to conform or do this thing or, oh, I can't show people that part of myself. We've had this part of ourselves in some way probably familiar to us. So as we talk about going through the process of becoming unstifled or unrestricted, I don't know if it's really something we have to go discover new. It's probably more of a reclamation process of something that once was, right? It's getting past all the crap we've globbed on ourselves. It's like removing all of that, getting back down to more of who we really are, the more essence of how we move through the world. So I don't know if it's like, it can be a lot of hard work. It can be like, oh, I got to go through all this personal growth work or personality type understanding work and really understand how this is influencing me. It could be deep and dark and hard and difficult, but some of us, it may not have to be that much. It could just be like letting go. And like Antonia said, giving yourself permission to be able to step into that version of you that feels, can you imagine? I mean, just imagine yourself right now going through the world and not having to care about all those things so much, right? You can be more relaxed. You don't have to like be on and all the is everybody gonna be okay with what I'm doing, what I'm acting? Can I talk to that person and be mad at me? Can I just emote the way I want to move? Can I cry in public and no one judge me? Or if they do, I don't care because I'm just free. I'm a free agent. I'm free in this world and I can live what makes sense to me. And obviously not hurting anybody, being a reasonable adult, but imagine yourself being in that state. You probably have a sense of yourself. If you think about it, what a free version of me look like? What would a more unrestricted version of me, bringing myself to the world, look like? Maybe tune into that for just a moment, get a sense of it. What would that version of yourself feel like? Would you feel good about it? Would you be like, yeah, that feels really good. I love the fact that I can act in this way and bring my full essence to something. And obviously it's going to be different for each of us because we are all wired differently. Some of us are introverts and that won't look like my version of it, right? Mine's going to be very different than maybe an INFJ's version of unstifledness. So whatever that means for you and how you're wired, that's also important, clearly. And that's why we talk about personality types.